When looking to connect your older retro video game system to a modern flat panel TV, you have a number of different options out there. And some are really, really good, and some not so much. We're going to talk today about one of the best solutions out there, or at least one of the families of the best solutions out there. Hey everyone, Gary here with Rocksolid Productions. I hope you do appreciate and learn something from the episode that we are going to talk about here today. So one of the best solutions, in my opinion, to connect your older video game system to a modern flat panel TV, these guys here or these guys here. These are part of the RetroTink family. And what they do is they convert older audio-video signals over to HDMI. They convert it from analog to digital, and they also do some line multiplication as well, so that you get as good of a picture quality as possible on your modern flat panel TV, and you're not going to lose signal integrity, you're not going to get lag, you're not going to feel delays, anything along those lines. There are a number of different options out there in the RetroTink family that, depending on your application, one may be better for you than another. You don't necessarily need the RetroTink 5X, which is the granddaddy of them all. This is the one that does anything and everything. If you're connecting one system, it's overkill. Trust me on that, unless you're super passionate about that, which we will get into later. So we're going to talk about a number of things in this episode. We're going to talk about the different offerings in the RetroTink lineup, the way that they connect, and how you can connect your system to them. Now, a couple things I want to get out of the way right now. First and foremost, while I am a fan of the RetroTink itself, this is my own video, my own opinions, everything like that. Mike, he and I are friends, the owner of RetroTink, but it's not one of those things where, I'm being paid to promote the product. I want to try to help you, and in a lot of ways, I'm going to try to help you save some money so that you don't buy something more than what you need. Second of all, there are AV to HDMI adapters that are out there that are $10 to $25, $35 at most. These are garbage. They introduce a ton of lag and latency. The picture quality is not very good, and on a lot of them I've gotten an audio buzz, so I don't recommend those. Also, there are HDMI cables that you can get for some older systems like the N64, for the Genesis, for the Master System, and for other systems. These tend to be a little bit better than those AV to HDMI adapters, but they still introduce some lag and latency. You can run into some issues with color authenticity and color reproduction. And again, they work okay for an entry-level type consumer. If it's just something you want to connect your Saturn and play it once every 3 months, you know what? Do it and have fun. It won't be nearly as bad of an experience as those AV to HDMI adapters, but they will not be to the same level as what we're going to walk you through here today. And finally, garbage in, garbage out. You're going to hear me talk about that a number of times during this episode. And by that I mean there are a number of different ways that you can go into one of these systems. If you use the lowest grade video quality out of your system into this, it can only do so much. So don't expect a miracle, but expect that you will see some improvement. So let's get started with the basic entry-level version that Mike has, and that is the RetroTink 2X Mini. So the RetroTink 2X Mini is Mike's entry-level device, and it is, in my way, an ideal way for a large number of people to get into upscalers, line doublers, whatever you want to call them. So on the RetroTink Mini itself, as you can see, first of all, available in a number of different colors, so that's fun. It does also have two different types of inputs on it. You can see the red, the yellow, and the white for your composite video. You can also see it has S-video. So if you are simply hooking up an original front loader NES, if you are connecting up a Super Nintendo or Super Nintendo Junior, if you are connecting up a Nintendo 64, this is a great way to start. It's also his least expensive offering in the line. And what's nice is he also includes an S-video to Nintendo connector, let's call it. It's that connector that the Super NES, the N64, and even the GameCube uses. Now, what's nice about this is it will get you your line doubling from 240p to 480p. What am I talking about here? So original retro video game systems up till about the GameCube era, the Dreamcast, and some later ones, they all output and when I say up to that, those GameCube and later were 480p. So what that does for older televisions, CRTs, not an issue. Many modern flat panel TVs, they can't display that low of a resolution, so they have issues with that. So the RetroTink 2X Mini, what it does is it line doubles from 240p to 480p, giving you a sharper overall picture. And it does so without introducing any lag. And pretty much the entire lineup is lag-free as you go through here. So what that'll do is give you the ability to go out into your television no problem via an HDMI cable. Now on here as well, like I mentioned, HDMI output, you can also go into something like a capture card. So say you want to start getting into YouTube streaming, streaming on Twitch, streaming on other platforms, you can do that with this. So if you have an original Nintendo Entertainment System, like I mentioned, an original Super NES, an original Nintendo 64, I would say the RetroTink 2X Mini is a great way to start out. And especially with the Super NES, the original Super NES, the N64, and the GameCube actually, those actually all can utilize the S-Video port that's on here. So you will get even better picture quality than composite video. Up next, we're going to talk about this guy. This is the RetroTink 2X Pro, and it takes everything that the Mini does and just takes it to the next level. And there's a few interesting things that this does that both the Mini does, but then the Mini cannot do. So first and foremost, looking on here, as you can see, you have the red and the white for your audio left and right. You have the green, the blue, and the red, also known as your component video inputs. Along the side here, there is an S-Video input as well, but you might be saying, where's the composite? Where's the yellow? Well, that's one of the interesting things that Mike has done. So before we talk about this, I want to show you this. This is the original RetroTink 2X, also called the RetroTink Classic. And this actually had separate inputs for component and composite video. Now, this worked great. I used it for quite some time. What Mike did on the 2X Pro is he basically took the composite and the green, combined it into one, so simplified his overall design. I actually have my Pro right here. Now, in addition to all that, so you can go ahead and use an AV switcher, for example, and what I've done forever and a day is I've had a component switcher box that takes 4 inputs and does 1 output into this. Now, into one of those 4 inputs, I have had my Famicom Twin Turbo from Sharp, and that outputs composite video. So what I do with that one is I connect the red and the white into left and right for the audio, but the composite, I just go into the green on my switcher box, and then when I select that input, this does its thing as far as read the green input as composite versus component. Now, this also has the fact that it has S-Video, component, composite. It also has a button up top where you can select your input. So I still have to go through that extra step of selecting composite for the input type versus component, but it does so flawlessly. This also introduces a scanline feature, so if you like that sort of look, which I don't, I think they look terrible myself, but I'm not a fan of CRTs, you can add that on here as well. You can also bypass the 2x line multiplication and just do a straight pass-through. Why would you want to do that? Well, some capture cards don't like that resolution. They don't have, or they have other compatibility issues. Sometimes you just want to see 240p, but in a digital mode up on your television here. And those are the switches that you have on the side. So you have a mode and a comb filter switch. And basically you can turn the comb filter on or off to adjust the overall picture quality. Now this is more expensive than the Mini. You would expect that. It does more. At $129.99, at least at the time of this video, it is, $50 more expensive than what the original RetroTink Mini is, but you also get additional benefits. So why would you go with this versus the Mini? And again, I think the Mini is a terrific device, even though I think it's the only one I don't own right now. Again, if you're only going to one system, the Mini, perfect. If you're only using S-Video or composite, Mini is perfect. Once you get into component video, that's where you're going to want to go into something like this. Now, what does component video mean to you? Well, that's where it has the 3 separate cables. Again, the green, the blue, and the red for video, where it's basically breaking it out into those separate components of your video. So with something like this, because it does have the component inputs on it, it really gives you access to an even better quality signal than composite, which it isn't great, and S-Video, which is considerably better, but doing the RGB component video input looks a heck of a lot nicer. And depending on the systems, you may not need to mod your system whatsoever. You know, things like the Super Nintendo out of the box actually did component video if you got the right cables. And the beautiful thing about that is HD Retrovision has component video cables that's a direct fit. It's a direct plug-in. Now, they can be hard to get because they're in such high demand. With other systems from Nintendo that utilize that same connector type, you may have to get into some modding. Like, for example, the Super NES Junior and the Super Famicom Junior, like the Super Famicom Junior that I have here, those both needed to have a mod chip installed to be able to take advantage of the component video inputs on here. The N64 is exactly the same way. You need to mod it to be able to access the component video input. On the flip side, many Sega systems did RGB component video right out of the box. The Master System, Genesis, 2 perfect examples. Again, there's HD Retrovision component cables that you can go ahead and plug right into this. It's one of those things where, depending on the system that you're utilizing, will help determine which one of these is best for you. So if you have access out of your system to that component video output on it, I would highly recommend going with the RetroTink 2X Pro over the Mini, and especially if you're going to have multiple systems going into this. But what if you have a system that outputs more than 240p? That's where our next one comes into play. So while this may look nearly identical to the original RetroTink 2X Pro, the RetroTink 2X Pro Multiformat does a number of things quite differently under the hood and is really designed for a different generation of systems. Where the 2X Pro is geared towards systems that output 240p and even to a lesser extent 480i, the RetroTink 2X Pro is designed for 480p and higher output devices. And what this allows you to do is pass through that signal but go from an analog to a digital conversion, so you can go into a modern flat panel TV. Again, no lag, no loss, anything like that. This has a lot of the same features that the RetroTink Pro has, such as scanline and comb filter, but it also handles the composite 240p video better in some ways than even the standard Pro. If you are looking to play an original Nintendo Entertainment System, for example, and get the best composite for the money, this would be the way to go over the original, and that's per Mike himself at RetroTink. In addition, if you are looking to connect like a PlayStation 2, an original Xbox that can output 480p, a Saturn, I dare say, on some games you may want to look at this. There are reasons why this exists, and it's mostly for 480p and higher resolutions. Now, you can do the line doubling if you are doing 240p through it. So this will do a lot of what this will as well. So let's say, for example, I'm a Nintendo fan, stretch, I know, but we have 3 systems. I have a Wii, I have an N64, and I have a Super Nintendo, which I have all those. The Wii, hypothetically, we're going to hook up using component video cables. That's where I would use the component inputs on this and then use pass-through mode from here to go from an analog to a digital signal. Now let's say hypothetically my N64, I have S-Video hooked up and working. So then I just go into the S-Video on here and I can use the 2 times line multiplication on here, and now I get 480p via S-Video. And let's say on my Super NES I have a Junior, so I only have composite video outputs. Well, I can go composite into here and it'll look better than just about any other option available in this price range or lower of the RetroTink. So that is where the RetroTink 2X multi-format kind of comes into play, and when you should consider this versus the standard 2X Pro. Again, the main thing is what's your input signal. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this guy here. This is the RetroTink 2X sCART, and the reason being, if you know what sCART is, you kind of have an idea, and you've kind of progressed above and beyond what this guide is. But the RetroTink 2X sCART is a great way if you have a system that can output RGB sCART through like an Insurrection Industries sCART cable like I have here. It gives you a super crisp signal going right into an HDMI port on the back, well, out of an HDMI port. And then this also does have the ability to turn on and off different filters on here. Now, it is a little bit more simple since it's only a sCART input on here, but I will say that the results coming out of this, absolutely beautiful. And if sCART is your thing, this is definitely something to consider. Now, I know there are devices such as the G-sCART, I believe is what it's called, from Rondo Products. Ryan over at Castlemania Games sells those. What you could actually do with this is there is a coupler, male-to-male coupler, where you can stick this on the output on that system and then output via HDMI to your switcher box, to your capture card, or to your television. So this is a great way to go ahead and get from an RGB sCART into an HDMI port. And finally, we're going to talk about the big boy itself. This is the RetroTink 5X. And basically everything that you heard me say about all the others, this does and more. So the RetroTink 5X, first and foremost, you notice 2X versus 5X does 5 times the line multiplication compared to 2X for the earlier versions. Now this one here is designed to compete with very high-end upscalers and line multipliers, things like the OSSC, the open source scan converter, and the FrameMeister. Now the FrameMeister has been several $100s for a number of years since people have found it. And it has had so many advantages for so many years. It does component, it does composite, it does S-video, it does RGB sCART. Wonderful piece of tech. But they've been going for $300 to $600 for nearly 10 years. And they're not making them anymore. So what's out there is what's out there, and they demand a premium price. Now the OSSC was the first real budget-friendly competitor to go up against the FrameMeister, and that is being open source. It's a community-driven project, even though individual companies utilize that open source design to produce their own hardware to utilize it. And that out of the box, it didn't even have HDMI out to begin with. It had DVI output, but it also had some other interesting features. The original was even just a kit. You had to build it yourself. But since then, they've evolved it, and it now features a standard HDMI output, even though it's still based on a DVI architecture. You can go ahead and go into it with component video, VGA video, so if you have something like a Dreamcast, that's possibly one of the best ways to get picture out of the Dreamcast, and it also does RGB sCART. Now that's quite a bit less expensive than what the FrameMeister is. You know, when I bought mine almost 3 years ago, you were looking at $230 to $250. Now they're available for just over $130 to $150, again because more and more companies are making them. And then we have this guy here, like I say, this is the RetroTink 5X, and this will do on the back, as you can see, it does have the component video inputs on it. It will also do very similar to what the RetroTink 2X Pro does. It'll do composite through the green input on here. We'll also do S-video, and then on the side, it does have RGB sCART. So it's essentially taking these 3 devices, so the RetroTink Pro, the multi-format, and the sCART, merging them into one unit and increasing the line multiplication from 2 times to 5 times. Now, because it does all of this, this is not an inexpensive device. You're looking, the original launch price was $275. Word on the street is the next batches are going to be $300. Now this also again does more than what those do. It has built-in profiles for a number of different systems, from the PC Engine to the Super NES to the N64 to the Saturn and more. This, like the entire RetroTink line, is also firmware upgradable. So as Mike develops new and interesting solutions that these can take advantage of, they can be added via software firmware update on there too. Now, one thing on all of them, and I will ding Mike on this a little bit, is it does use micro USB for power. In 2021, USB-C, Mike, so I'm going to say USB-C. Now this will do, again, all of those inputs: component, composite, S-video, and RGB sCART, and will upscale them to your desired resolution. Now this can also not only do 1080p right out of the box, it can do 1200p and 1440p. So if you use a gaming monitor, you can get even a higher resolution than what most of us can enjoy on standard televisions. This also tends to work better with some of the older Sega systems. Some of the original designs on the RetroTink didn't necessarily play the best with the Sega Genesis, with the Sega Master System. He has gone back and kind of tweaked that, but now this I've used with both systems, no issues whatsoever. Works beautifully with the Saturn, in fact. I mean, this is everything that we have been asking for. It is a true FrameMeister one-on-one, basically, competitor. And this is the ultimate if you are looking for the best RetroTink you can buy, and money is no object. Now, the stand that you see me using it in here, this is actually available from retrofrog.net, available for under $20, and Mike does have a convenient remote control that'll help you walk through all of the different settings on the RetroTink 5X. So let's kind of wrap everything up here and kind of go through one by one the RetroTink and who it's for. So to wrap things up, which is the right RetroTink for you? Let's make it really quick and easy. If you are looking at composite video only or S-video only and only have one or two systems that you are hooking up, do yourself a favor, save yourself some money, go with the RetroTink 2X Mini. If you have multiple systems that you are looking to connect, and or you have the ability to go component video output into a device, then you would want to go with the RetroTink 2X Pro. If you have something newer, such as a 480p or higher resolution gaming system, that is where you would want to go with the RetroTink Multiformat. If you have sCART, well, the RetroTink sCART is definitely the way to go. And finally, if you are looking for the ultimate solution in your retro video game upscaler and line multiplier, that is where you want to go with the RetroTink 5X. Don't spend more money than you need to, because you're going to be spending money on things like cables or switchers or things along those lines. So don't buy more than what you're going to need. For the average consumer, quite honestly, the RetroTink Mini is a wonderful solution, especially if you don't have anything higher than composite or S-video. Once you get to component, that's where you want to go with the Pro, and then of course, like I mentioned, the 5X here. Now, if you do have any other comments or questions, as always, feel free to leave them down below. You can also go ahead and email me at rocksolidmail@gmail.com. You can send me a message on Twitter at RockSolidStudios. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/RockSolidProductions and Instagram at instagram.com/RockSolidProductions. GK. Now, while I have purchased some of these have been provided over the years by Mike from RetroTink, and I do want to go ahead and thank him for that. But the opinions that you're hearing here, these are my own, like I mentioned in the intro as well. Now, if you are looking for Insurrection Industries cables or HD Retrovision cables or the G-Scomp or G-sCART switches, do me a favor, head on over to CastleManiaGames.com. Ryan has all that equipment right there, and the beautiful thing is he now accepts payments on items on the website. It'll give you the option there if he can accept a payment on a specific item, like those switchers are a couple $100. You're looking $250 plus. You can go ahead and make 4 convenient payments on it. You also earn what's called Castle Cash. That's his rewards program, where the more you spend, the more you can earn and use towards future purchases. And the wonderful thing is Castle Cash is just like cash. And you can use promo code ROCKSOLID10 to save 10% off of most items on the website. And I will tell you, HD Retrovision component video cables and the RetroTink 2X, 2X Pro, multi-format, and the 5X work fantastically together. Now, if you are looking for individual videos on any of the RetroTink products that we have covered here on the channel, or any other videos on cables, upscalers, line doublers, how to get the best picture out of your retro video game system, those videos are coming up for you right now. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to support the future of Rock Solid Productions, you can do so by visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/rocksolid. For as little as $1 a month, $12 a year, you'll get early access to all of our video content, exclusive content, and a whole lot more. You can also become a channel member here on YouTube for as little as $1.99 a month, and with that, you get a badge next to your name when you comment or post on the channel, and you are acknowledged whether you are a channel member or a Patreon supporter at the end of each and every one of our videos. You can also support the channel by visiting our Teespring store on screen now, where we have t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, masks, cell phone cases, and much more. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.